This is the first time I'm live on YouTube. My account has permitted me to go live, which they don't permit everybody else. I've got to do that for my professional YouTube channel too. That would be awesome. You can go live and you can have a show on your business. So for my professional website, where I don't like to mix this with my work, and I'm actually trying to separate that. And I'm going to try to do this on my professional website. Anyway, this, I'm going to see how this records and if it does the same type of thing, that it records it and just leaves it on the my YouTube channel as a recorded video like Facebook would. I'm not on Facebook, but I used to be, and if you made a video, it would be live and then it would be on your page. So, we'll see. I am under the weather. Everything under my rib cage is extremely sore from coughing violently. And I have the flu. This was day 4. I had taken pills in the middle of the night, got up feeling... When you have a fever, everything's under pressure, so you feel it everywhere. You just know you're sick. When you take aspirin, it masks the fever, but you're still sick. And so when I woke up, I didn't know if I were 90% recovered or that my fever were just 90% masked. I didn't know which one it was. It turns out that as the day went on, I was feeling pretty good in the morning. And then around 2 to 4, I said, oh boy, I was in traffic. And I said, I can't wait to get into bed. I'm still sick. And right now, right in here, it hurts. So, the flu. Now you know how it kills people who are old. They get pneumonia. And so I realized that. Anyway. Chapter 5, the book on confidence. Part B. It was too long to finish it yesterday. So, how could we be without a pope for all of these years? We're not without a pope. We have Jesus Christ, the head of the Catholic Church. There have been interregnums, that is a period of time at which we don't have a visible pope. We've had one as long as 3 years. The church goes on, the faith goes on. The Japanese, from the 1500s to the 1800s, there was no cell phones, there was no communications back then. They lived and died for 300 years without communion with the church. The faith had been passed down. They were baptizing their children. They were getting married. And they lived the faith without knowledge of any changes that were taking place in the church. That was for 300 years. We are in a situation since Vatican II where it is being taught that it doesn't matter what religion you are. You can be whatever religion as long as you're good at it. You be a good person. Let me show you where that's wrong, and you've heard it before. The Holy Ghost is the dispenser of what is good. And so if you go to Galatians, I think it's 5:23. Let me see. I don't know. I'll find out if it's not. Be good. How can you be a good non-Catholic when all that's good comes from the good God. Watch this. 5:23. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is charity, joy, peace, patience, benignity, goodness, longanimity, mildness, faith, modesty, continency, chastity. Against such there is no law. That's the fruit of the Spirit. Is that the fruit of the spirit of a false religion? No. This is a Catholic epistle. This is in the Catholic Bible. And this is the Catholic faith. And so to say to somebody, be a good Jew, be a good Muslim, be a good Hindu, it says that goodness comes from the fruit of the Holy Ghost. And how can I be a good non-Catholic if the fruit of the Catholic faith is goodness? I can't be a good Muslim or a good Hindu or a good non. I can't, because in order to reap the benefits of the fruits of the Catholic faith, I must live it and possess sanctifying grace. And so there's no such thing as being a good Muslim and a good Jew and a good Hindu. That is not to say that these people are incapable of goodness, because there is natural good. If there weren't, you would see people eating other people when they get hungry, barbarism, the likes of which we saw in the Native Americans. You would see people acting far worse than animals do. And so God gave natural virtue to people so that there would be civility among those who were striving to get to heaven and those who would not be striving to get to heaven, the wheat and the cockle. And so, anyway, how could we be without a pope for this many years? Well, we have our reason. We can't adopt the reality of the situation to our parameters of what we believe the faith tells us. The gates of hell will not prevail against it, I kept saying before I left that institution of the Novus Ordo. That's the religion under the Vatican II establishment. I kept saying I kept telling the people who were talking to me, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. What is the Catholic Church? It is the church that St. Athanasius was defending when he was a bishop. He said, they have the buildings, we have the faith, during the heresy of his day. Pay attention to that. These are the saints. He said, they have the buildings, the heretics. They're in charge of our institutions, of our Blessed Sacrament, of our relics, of our beautiful architecture. They have our buildings, but we have the faith that they lost. How is it that we have no pope for this many years? Does God have to adjust to your understanding of what the Catholic faith is when he simply tells us to remain faithful to him? And so if we remain faithful to him and we believe everything he taught, we can say, there must be a pope, therefore I need to adapt to these heresies, which I know they're not teaching right, but they have to be the pope. That's not using reason. You know, he gave us reason to subordinate our passions. What are the passions? One of them is fear. The other one, another one is love. And so, reason must subordinate all of the passions. And so, we can't become emotional because it doesn't fit into our understanding. We have to take a step back and say, what is the Catholic faith? Would you study the Catholic faith by going to the year 2019? Or would you not study the Catholic faith by going back to the beginnings? If you were to start catechizing somebody, you would start teaching them about the things that became dogmas. The things that were pronounced dogmas. Nothing becomes a dogma. Nothing becomes. There are no new dogmas. They are just promulgated. Nothing becomes new. Everything that is already is. When the Blessed Mother's Assumption was proclaimed in 1950, she was assumed into heaven. She didn't get assumed in 1950. The church said, this is a dogma. Okay, so the point is that is Francis somebody we would obey? Francis, if he's the Pope, he has the authority to tell you what you must believe in order to get to heaven. Francis does not believe that there is only one faith that will get to heaven. He doesn't believe it. And so he's inclined to tell people that they can remain in their false religions and still make it to heaven. He told Tony Palmer, who is a Pentecostalist, quote-unquote, bishop. Look it up, Tony Palmer, Palmer. He dressed like a Roman Catholic priest, and Francis was telling him, you're my brother bishop. You want to follow that pope. That's your business. If Tony Palmer, the Pentecostalist bishop, who's now dead, he died in a motorcycle accident a couple of years ago, if he's the brother bishop of the Roman Catholic pontiff, if he is a brother bishop, then we can embrace what Tony Palmer teaches if he's a brother bishop. This is insanity. He's not a brother bishop. He is a heretic outside of Catholic unity. And he is not to be called a brother bishop. He's not to be called a bishop whatsoever. Take a look at Apostolic Curiae by Pope Leo XIII, who condemned the Anglican so-called orders of ordination. He condemned it. Apostolic Curiae, C-U-R-A-E, condemned the Anglican so-called religious orders as utterly null and void. And Bergoglio, or Francis, is calling Tony Palmer a brother bishop. In other words, he is in union with a heretic. So I'm already convinced, I'm way past that doubt. But I was doubtful myself way back when. But today, I have a burning desire to let everybody know. Look at me and look at what the church did to my life. They ruined my life because of their false doctrines. And they marry people who know nothing about marriage. And then you get married in an institution where you believe annulments are possible to a bond that's supposedly forever. A bond that can be easily dissolved by some heretical priest, bishop. And so, if I can prevent other people from suffering, from being in this criminal institution, I'm very passionate about it. I honestly feel like throwing people in jail when I think about what they're doing. On the other hand, it's a result of their sins, you know? If you're in that fake church, take a look at your life and see if you haven't suffered as a result of the misleading truths that aren't truths that they teach. They're phony annulments that they give out. I know a woman in New York whose sister was divorced, annulled, remarried to a drunk. And this woman, I used to be very friendly with her and her husband. They don't talk to me anymore because I left the church. She said, I want you to marry my sister. That would have been, and we were in the Vatican II church. That would have been the sister's third marriage. Her second annulment, her third marriage in that institution. And this is the mockery that they place on marriage. The second husband was a drunk. Yeah, this is this is live. I can't believe I'm live, but you know what? YouTube is letting me do it. What the heck, right? Yeah. I just hope it records it to YouTube, because I gotta redo it. If it's not, I gotta reread this chapter. Anyway, so the point is, how do we not have a pope for all these years? Christ, you know, he's God is very mysterious sometimes. But in another way, he's not. Be still and know that I am God. What do we have? We have the faith. We know what the faith is. When you can deduce that if your confirmed teenager were to profess what Francis is professing, you would correct your teenage confirmed daughter. Don't say that. That's a heresy. Go to bed. Go in your room. You're speaking like a heretic. We won't have that in this house. But if the Pope does it, he's a bad Pope. He says crazy things. Okay, I understand that. That's all true. You can say he's a bad Pope, and because, you know, we're only human beings. What the heck? We're not the church. We don't have the authority to say he's not the Pope. We don't have the authority. Only a Pope can declare a Pope an anti-Pope, right? But what we can do is conclude that this man has no authority to be telling anybody what the Catholic faith is, since he defects on at least one point of the Catholic faith, which is the unity of faith, the indefectibility of the Roman Catholic Church, the indissolubility of marriage. We're in a bad situation. And the only way out of it is to have the Catholic faith. It's the only way you could see what's going on if you have the supernatural virtue of faith. The video has frozen. Well, my screen is frozen. I don't understand what's going on. I hope that it's still recording. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to cut it off and then just start recording again. I don't know what's happening at 20:20 and